There we go. The video started. Well, I got some sleep, and now it's 12:30 at night. And I just ate a little bit to get some energy on in me, future me and virtual me. And I wanted to make a video on what I would do if I were president, and what I hope the next president / next administration does. In, I guess, 3.5 years. Jeez, just so far, because there's another 3.5 years. So we don't even know what's going to happen in the next 3.5 years. But I'm assuming that stuff is going to get worse and not better. But you don't know. Maybe stuff will get better. You know, there is a midterm election, so maybe it'll get better. Anyways, first would be to rescind, reverse most, if not all, the executive orders that Trump has done. You'd have to look through them and see what they are. Now, they're all, maybe not all, but most of them, basically invalid. You know, they're not even worth talking about because they're unconstitutional, but just reverse them just to make, you know, just because. And then I would try to get, that's just a fuzzy on my sock. Thought it was a little bug. I would try. Now, I know the president, as far as I understand it, the president himself can't propose legislation. The president himself can't draft and propose legislation that's not in his purview. And I say his in the non-gender specific. But any citizen, any person really, or organization can write legislation, and then a congressman can just, you know, say, here it is, I'm sponsoring this legislation. So just, you know, a law that, you know, I don't know the wording, but basically tunes up the tax rate. Income and I phrase it as all passive income. Now that includes, that's capital gains, stock, what is it called? Stock, the income you gain from stock. The word escapes me now. Ooh, my stomach's digesting stuff. Dividend payments and all sorts of crap. You know, the sitting on your ass income that you get from being a rich person. You know, just owning stuff and not having to do anything income. That sort of stuff. As well as income from a job. Raise the top marginal income rate back up to, 90%. And, capital gains up to the same rate. And increase the corporate tax up to the same rate. And I like the idea of including a provision in there for increasing the federal minimum wage for large corporations to $17 and small businesses to $15. So that that way it allows small businesses to have to compete on a more equal footing. Because small businesses aren't able to buy their product in the same bulk volume that corporate businesses like Walmart and Target and Kroger and et cetera, Amazon, all those things are a mom and pop shop, therefore would be able to save on the labor costs. It's just a little bit of savings, and it wouldn't impact too much a wage earner, but it would give the small business owner a little bit of savings. And then there's all sorts of other policies that I've talked about in other videos if you want to go through those. All sorts of other policies, federal programs. I can't even really go into all of them, but it includes reestablishing all those other agencies that Trump canceled out and stuff. That's like rescinding the whatevers. And I don't know. I've talked about many ideas before, but yeah. I've also talked about the idea, I think, in a video of having Um, I call it like I call it environmental reclamation, um, which this is an example, and you can take this example and just expand on it. But it's like the mountaintop mining example, and like you put a you put a levy or fine or something on a mining company um, that had done mountaintop mining, and you take that fine and you pay people in the community where the mountaintop mining was first and foremost. But there's probably not a whole lot of people there, but you can first and foremost pay people there, hire locals before others to do whatever they want to do to fix the you know fix up the land. I don't know. I say replanting trees and clean up the rivers, but that's kind of just the beginning. And um, so yeah, that's just a starting point. I'm sure the people in the area themselves would, once they start, they would, network together, and they would come up with, ideas on how to help the area. And you can look on YouTube on how other areas and other countries have remediated environmental damage, um, and tailor it to your own situation. So that's one thing. And you can use that fine to just employ them. It doesn't have to be a huge payment. They don't have to get paid $150,000 a year. Just something that's worthwhile, and something that pays for the costs of whatever they're going to be doing. I'm sure the satisfaction of seeing their community and their land being, restored to something that looks better than a mountain being completely decimated, and just instead of a mountain with forested trees that would have, animals and shit on it, where it's just stripped of everything. Now it has flora and fauna all over it. That would be much more satisfying too. So, and it'd probably be a long, ongoing problem or a project. So, it'd probably take something like 5 or 10 years anyways. So, and there's lots of those. It wouldn't just be that. It'd be that, and it'd be all over the country. There's environmental damage all over the country. So, it's not just mining companies, it's mining companies, oil companies, probably lumber companies, um, et cetera, et cetera. So, just all sorts of programs. Once we start taxing rich people and rich corporations, we'll have lots of money to do lots of stuff. And then once those people that are being paid again, once people have money, and even though they're being paid from government programs, then other people in those communities might feel like, well, I can open up a shop, and maybe some of the kids in those communities won't need to leave. They'll feel like maybe I don't need to go anywhere. That's the process of cycling money, and then because they don't need to leave, they'll start a family there, and it's this kind of thing of it's my kind of rationale of government jobs. Um, Government jobs are not bad. They're not wasteful. And they're not a leech on the economy. The biggest leech on the economy is government money siphoned off to a rich person or a rich corporation that already has too much money and keeps stashing it away in somebody's account that already has way more money than they know what to do with. Because if somebody has way more money than they have any idea what to do with, they're not going to spend it. If somebody has $1 billion and they can't spend $1 billion, they're just going to take that $1 billion and earn interest on it and not do anything with the $12 million that they get every year. And then out of that $12 million, they're spending maybe $8 million, and now they got an extra $4 million that they didn't do anything with. And then, it keeps compounding. So, and that's just, and then they may have earned extra money on top of that from all the business income. So it just keeps growing and growing. You need to tax that income. You need to tax that income hard so that it comes back into the pockets of other people so that they can use it. And that it cycles through the economy and the other people can use that money and either use it to do other stuff. But a lot of these rich people, the worst rich people actually know that keeping 50+% of the population poor and stressed out and working most of the time. How do I phrase this? Keeping people poor, working, and stressed out doesn't give them the time to realize they're being screwed over. And if they don't have enough time to sit down and think about who's fucking them over, then they don't have enough time to go out and organize a march on the gated communities of rich people and say, you're fucking me over. I'm not going to take it anymore. So those are the worst of the rich people. Some of them are just so consumed with getting rich that that's all they do. And the like I said, some of them are just kind of that Dr. Evil kind of person that's like, we gotta keep them down, otherwise they'll realize that we're plotting against them, and so we gotta keep them frantically running like a chicken with head cut off. Otherwise they'll realize that they'll realize who the enemy is. So we gotta keep them fucking working 3 jobs totaling 86 hours a week, doing that shit. And then the other ones, we gotta keep them working 60 hours a week, trying to climb the property ladder until they're 50 to 65 years old, so that those ones can retire, having provided a good enough life for their kids, that their kids can have had a great education and be one step above them, have succeeded. Just like, whatever. Anyhow, that's my little take on where I was. What you should do, next leader or me, probably going to be the next leader. But most of the things that I would do or the next leader should do is, you're going to have to go through back the old videos. If you want advice, if you want my advice, it's a lot of old videos. A lot of ideas in there. But I'll say this again, like I say a lot of times. My ideas are not solely my ideas. A bunch of other people are saying the same thing. So, same things. So, yeah. All right. Well, I just wanted to put that on the permanent digital record. Okay. I'm going to go back to my documentaries. And my documentaries on the 60s, because I think we're living through a very, very similar experience as the I guess 60s and early mid 70s. Yeah, something like that. Okay, boobs out.